Most people don't realize the silent power their parents' unresolved energies hold. Imprinted in childhood, these forces still shape their relationships, finances, and self-worth decades later. The dynamics of your early relationship with your mother and father are not just conventional memories. They form the architecture shaping your perception of reality. From the moment you were born until around age 7, more or less, your brain operated primarily in what's called a theta state, a hypnotic or dreamlike frequency where your subconscious mind was wide open and absorbing beliefs from your environment like a sponge. This is why the way you subconsciously perceived your parents, their behaviors, their emotional patterns, even their unspoken tensions, became the foundation of your beliefs about love, safety, power, and belonging. During this theta-dominant phase, you were not just observing your parents, you were downloading their energy as a template for how the world works. If your father was emotionally distant, for example, your subconscious might have internalized that masculine energy is rigid or unreliable. If your mother struggled to nurture herself, you might have absorbed hidden rules about feminine energy being depleted or conditional. These impressions were not stored as thoughts in the regular sense, but they sort of became your operating system. They're running silently underneath the surface of your conscious mind. So, as you grew older, your brain waves shifted. Between ages 7 and 14, you entered the alpha state, a bridge between subconscious absorption and conscious analysis. And then post-puberty, you pretty much settled into the beta state where the logic and critical thinking and so on take center stage. But here's the catch. By the time you reached beta, roughly 95% of your subconscious programming was already solidified. So those early theta phase beliefs about mom and dad didn't disappear, but instead they became the lens through which you interpret everything. So this is where the father-mother-child dynamic reveals its power. Let's look at the mother energy, for instance, how your mother showed up. Whether she was present, anxious, overly protective, or emotionally unavailable, shaped your subconscious relationship with nurturing, with creativity and femininity. If she criticized her own body, you might have unknowingly equated femininity with scarcity. If she sacrificed her needs constantly, you could have internalized that caregiving requires self-abandonment. These patterns often replay as struggles with self-worth, creative blocks, or dysfunctional relationships with women. And with regard to father energy, your father's presence or absence wired your beliefs about structure, safety, and masculine energy. If he was harsh or dismissive, you might associate masculinity with criticism, leading to self-sabotage in career or authority conflicts. If he was passive, your subconscious could interpret that as protection isn't reliable, manifesting as maybe a financial anxiety or distrust of men in general. And even his relationship with purpose, whether he seemed fulfilled or resigned, likely influenced your own beliefs about success and so on. Now, here's why this matters. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between past and present. It doesn't know the difference. It seeks to recreate what feels familiar, even if that familiarity is painful. Did you ever notice how you keep attracting partners who feel strangely similar to a parent's energy, for instance? Or bosses who trigger childhood wounds around authority? That kind of thing. That's not a coincidence. It's your subconscious projecting unresolved mom-dad dynamics onto the world and seeking closure through repetition. For instance, if you subconsciously associated love with having to earn a parent's approval through achievements, people pleasing, and so on, you might unknowingly attract relationships where affection feels conditional. If you internalized that conflict leads to abandonment, for instance, from a parent who withdrew during arguments, you may avoid confrontation at all costs, even if it breeds resentment or isn't productive in any way, shape, or form. So these are not flaws of yours, they're just your psyche's attempt to resolve old wounds through modern scenarios. And the key to interrupting this cycle is awareness. So when you notice a pattern, chronic financial struggles, recurring arguments with partners, or some visceral reaction to certain authority figures, pause and ask, does this energy remind me of mom or dad? You might discover your avoidance of leadership stems from a childhood belief that stepping up leads to criticism, for instance. Or your difficulty receiving care could trace back to your mother's subtle message that needing help is burdensome. But this work is never about blaming parents, okay? So they were operating from their own subconscious. They had their own programming. And it's about recognizing that you're no longer that theta state child. But bringing these shadow patterns into conscious awareness, bringing light to the darkness. And that'll begin the rewiring process.